Sunday evening, you had a good week. Maybe even a great one. You showed up. You were present. You talked. You laughed. You made it through every meeting and every meal and every conversation that needed you in it. And now it's Sunday evening, and something in you is completely hollow. Not sad, not sick, just used up. You need tomorrow to be quiet. You need the morning to be slow. You need at least one full day where no one calls your name, where no one needs a response, where the air in the room has not been shaped by anyone else's presence. And you already know, Monday comes anyway, so you do the math in your head, the way you always do. How many interactions this week? How many can you absorb before you start to disappear inside them? How long until you get a pocket of silence big enough to actually breathe in? People who don't work this way don't understand the math. They think you're being antisocial, dramatic, ungrateful for connection. They went to the same party you went to, and they came home energized. You came home and sat in your car for 10 minutes before you could face going inside. There's a name for what you were doing in that car, and it has nothing to do with not liking people. Most people assume this is a preference, a personality quirk, that some people just like being alone more than others, the same way some people prefer tea to coffee. But that's not the whole story. Sometimes this isn't a preference at all. Sometimes it's a biological requirement. Research from the University of London found that introverted nervous systems operate at a chronically higher baseline level of cortical arousal. Social interaction, which adds external stimulation on top of an already highly stimulated system, drives arousal toward overload faster and more intensely than in extroverted nervous systems. Solitude is not a luxury for these individuals. It is the mechanism by which their nervous system returns to equilibrium. What this means, in the language of lived experience, is that social interaction costs something neurologically specific in certain people. Not emotionally, not socially, neurologically. The tiredness after a full day of people isn't weakness. It's a nervous system that has been running hard, asking to come home. Not antisocial, physiological. Here's what no one talks about: the texture of it. It doesn't feel like sadness. It doesn't feel like burnout exactly. It feels more like a kind of static. The voices of the day are still running. The conversations are replaying. Something that was said at lunch is looping. The noise hasn't stopped. It just moved inside. And over everything, a heaviness. Not in the body exactly. More like a layer of gauze between you and the room. You're present, but at a slight remove, slightly behind glass. You're not depressed. You're full. Full the way a cup is full, where anything more just spills. And the recovery has a texture too. It isn't dramatic. You don't need adventure or catharsis. You need the particular quality of your own silence. A morning where the first sound you hear is one you chose. An afternoon where no one needs anything from you. The specific relief of a cancelled plan. Not because you don't care about the people in it. Because your system needs the absence of input the way a muscle needs the absence of strain. Rest isn't optional for muscles. And it isn't optional for this. Think about when you first learned to manage this. Because you did learn to manage it. Long before you had language for it. Maybe you were the child who needed to disappear after school. Not because school was bad. Sometimes it was fine. But because it cost something, and home was where you paid yourself back. Maybe you became expert at reading social calendars, at knowing instinctively when you were approaching the edge, at building in small pockets of alone time before anyone noticed you were doing it. You found the bathroom at parties. You took the long route home. You developed a talent for being near people without being entirely available to them. These weren't antisocial behaviours. They were maintenance. A child with a highly aroused nervous system who has too much social stimulation and no recovery time learns, eventually, to find that recovery time wherever they can. The adult you became still does this. Still reads the room for exits. Still calculates recovery time before committing to plans. Still wakes up on Saturday morning and feels, before anything else, relief that the day belongs to you. This wasn't you being difficult. This was you learning to survive your own nervous system. There's a reason the word hangover keeps appearing when people like you describe this. Research by psychologist Brian Little at Cambridge University found that introverts who perform in socially demanding roles experience a measurable physiological cost. He described the recovery time that follows, genuine solitude, as a restorative niche, a specific, necessary environment in which restoration happens, not optional, not indulgent, required, a restorative niche. That phrase is worth sitting with. Not a retreat, not avoidance, a niche, a specific, necessary environment in which restoration happens. Your apartment on a Saturday morning, your car on the way home from a dinner, the walk you take alone before you're ready to talk to anyone. These aren't escapes from life. They are what makes life sustainable. The research is consistent. For nervous systems wired this way, solitude is not the absence of something good. It's the presence of something necessary, not a luxury, a mechanism. Modern life was not designed with your nervous system in mind. Open-plan offices where every sound is shared, back-to-back video calls with no transition time, group chats that follow you home, the expectation that you are always, in some sense, available. We've built a working world that treats extroversion as the default and introversion as an accommodation. 5 days of social performance, 2 days to recover. Except the 2 days are full of obligations too. Family events, social commitments, the quiet pressure to be present for everyone who waited all week for access to you. And Monday comes, and you go back in, running on whatever the weekend managed to restore. This isn't laziness. This isn't weakness. This is a specific kind of person being asked to live inside a structure, built entirely for someone else. Here's what might shift when you stop framing this as a flaw. The recovery time you need isn't a tax on your social life. It's the condition under which your social life is actually possible. Without the Saturday morning quiet, you don't become more available by Saturday evening. You become less. You show up depleted, performing presence you don't have, giving people a version of yourself held together by obligation rather than genuine warmth. The solitude isn't what takes you away from people. It's what makes you capable of being with them. Maybe the math you've been doing your whole life, the calculation of how much you can absorb before you need to step back. Maybe that isn't a sign of social limitation. Maybe that's emotional intelligence, self-knowledge, a kind of literacy about your own system that most people spend their entire lives without developing. The person who cancels plans to sit alone on a Friday night might be doing something wiser than the person who pushes through, shows up hollow, and resents everyone in the room. There's a version of this life that works. It just requires you to stop apologizing for the conditions it needs. Not selfish, sustainable, not antisocial, calibrated, not broken, built differently. Go back to Sunday evening. The hollow feeling, the used up quiet, that's not failure. That's evidence of how fully you showed up. The car you sat in for 10 minutes before going inside, that wasn't avoidance. That was you giving yourself the first moment of actual rest you'd had all week. You're allowed to need this. You're allowed to build your life around it. You're allowed to say, quietly, without explanation, I need this day. Not because something is wrong with you, because you know how you work. Knowing how you work isn't a limitation. It's the beginning of building a life that actually fits. Not antisocial, recovering, not weak, wired differently, not running away, coming back to yourself. Every instrument needs to be put down, even the ones that love to play. especially those. The silence you're protecting isn't absence, it's where you live. You give people something real when you show up. That's only possible because of this: the hours no one sees, the days that restore you. You are not too much, you are not too little. You are someone who knows what they need. I want to ask you something. What does your recharge actually look like? The specific thing you do, or don't do, that brings you back to yourself after a long week of people. Not the general answer, the real one. Tell me in the comments. Because someone is going to read your answer and feel, maybe for the first time, that their version of this is normal. I'll be reading everyone,